it's hard to focus on the hobbies that you really enjoy and the family time that you want and all the things that you enjoy in life if you're also having to work a full-time job. And so that immediately was kind of like, well, that's my goal.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 0 to 100 podcast. Today, I've got Gabriel Hamill, our co-host. I don't know where Travis is missing, so let me know if you guys see Travis. But in all seriousness, 0 to 100 podcast is all about buying long-term real estate. 0 to 100 is all about buying long-term real estate, using real estate to get free and to live a big life. So whether that's focusing on health or going and base jumping like our guest today, or being with family or whatever you want to do, it's all about getting your time back, because we believe time is the most important currency, more important than real estate or money or cash or any of those things. So today we've got a guest on, good friend of mine, elite member, just an awesome guy. Super excited to dive in with Jonah Moses. Jonah, I'm going to read your bio real quick and we'll dive in, man. Jonah Moses is a Portland-based real estate investor, entrepreneur, and adventure seeker, always chasing the next unique opportunity. He started out burring and flipping single-family homes, scaling into value-add multifamily, and recently took the plunge into his biggest project yet, buying and optimizing a marina. Can't wait to dive in on that. Jonah's secret to success lies in building smart, scalable systems through automation and operational efficiency, freeing him up to focus on growth and occasionally cliff jumping, I mentioned that, and wake surfing. With financial freedom for his family and his motivation, Jonah blends strategy, spontaneity, and his business acumen into everything he does. Welcome, man. Appreciate you jumping on with us.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Man, that intro was a lot longer than I thought once you started reading it.
That's how a lot of intros are. Sometimes I get crazy long ones, and I read through it ahead of time, and I'm like, it's too long.
I feel like it was short and sweet. Long enough, but short enough. Yeah, it's good. So Jonah, tell us about you. Like, what'd you do before real estate? I can't wait to get to where you are today, because I think it's an exciting place. But go back in time, man. Tell us, like, maybe before real estate, and then why the hell are you doing what you do today?
Yeah, so I tried to think of like, where do I start with this? And really, I have always been kind of entrepreneurial spirit. Back in high school, I did a few various like entrepreneurial ventures when iPhones were such a huge thing that people were like lining up outside of stores. I hired a bunch of my friends to wear t-shirts that says, "I'll buy your iPhone." We gave them backpacks full of cash and a little price sheet. And so they would go stand in line with these people. They'd trade in their iPhones. We'd buy their broken ones. We'd fix them and sell them on eBay.
How old are you, like, right now?
Right now, I'm 39.
Then.
Yeah, 16, 17. And I had always envisioned this. I had read Tim Ferriss's and the Rich Dad Poor Dad, the 4-Hour Work Week, and the Robert Kiyosaki's book. And I mean, those were what I chose to read back in high school. They were always like, "Oh, pick a book."
You were reading those in high school.
Yeah.
A lot of people read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, 4-Hour Work Week, whatever. Like, how those books get in your hands as a 15, 16-year-old?
I think at the time I had grown up with a single mom who was really struggling financially, looking for some of the way. And she had been turned on to real estate and had never was successful with it, but was really interested in it. And I was like, "Oh, I want to learn more about this." And it somehow just appeared in front of me like, "Oh, well, you want to learn about real estate? Try read this book." And so it was sort of put in front of me. I read that. And I think I was 21 or so when I bought my first house. And this is in the heyday. This is 2006. And I was on the worst loan possible. I was on like a 5-1 arm with the worst rates possible. Technically, I think I was unemployed at the time. They didn't care. They just gave me a house. They were like, "Oh, you're breathing here. Have a house."
2006 was a great time to just get a loan. Not a great time to buy a house, maybe, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I look back at it, I'm like, "Oh, lesson learned." But it was great for me. I moved into this 4-bedroom, 3-bath house with me and my girlfriend. And within about 3 months, realized I had made a terrible mistake. I was like, one, know nothing about actually owning a home. 2, I'm a child who's now having a child, and a 4-bedroom house, 3-bath is like way too big. It's a yard. I don't know how to maintain anything. So I was like, okay, let me revisit this. I'm going to buy a condo and rent the house out. Then I'm going to be a landlord. This is going to be amazing. This is what the book says. And so I did that and realized very quickly from friends and family, like, oh, you need to go get a job. Like, you need to have some sort of income.
I loved it the whole time. You're like, no job. Finally, you're like, I realized from family saying you need a job that
Yeah, it was very apparent that they were like, okay, what are you doing?
You gotta work, man. You gotta work.
And I hated it. And so I was just like, all right, I'm going to find a job and I'm going to get a career or whatnot. But then I started having some like hardships, like these early challenges. The condo I actually ended up having to short sale and lost $25K on, was still renting out the house and it was paying for the mortgage. But that first loss, when at that time, I didn't have that money. Like, I was dead broke. And that really discouraged me and kind of led me to this like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing. So I really do need to listen to these people around me who are saying like, get a stable income, get a job. So I really quickly became like tired landlord, lost money on that condo, went and rented a house, but I still held on to that rental because I was still kind of like, I don't know what I would do if I'd lose money now. So I might as well hold it. And fast forward, I kept that house and I just started doing other odds and ends jobs, eventually, which led to software engineering, where I excelled at and I did well. I really enjoyed it. And I was doing that for about 10 years or so. And that was the best way to manage my ADHD and my anti-working for someone. Anytime someone's a software engineer in tech, depending on what company you're working for, they're really loose. You can show up when you want, you can leave when you want, as long as you're getting your work done. It's a really flexible schedule. And so I sort of like subdued, was like, okay, cool, I can do this. I can do my own thing here. But I always had this kind of itch that I was like, oh, this is just a means to an end. I want to build my own tool so I can be my own boss and do my own thing and go in that path.
So during that time when you were a software engineer, you said 10 years, were you buying real estate or were you like, look, I'm going to put on pause. I got burned. I got slapped, whatever you want to call it. So 10 years, you did not buy anything.
I was totally discouraged from real estate. And I didn't even think it was like, I didn't understand and I didn't have anybody around me at that time that had any success in real estate. So I hadn't seen anything other than what was in these books that I read.
I want to go back to that time though. You said you financed that first house, 5-1 ARM. Anyone get a loan back then? But what did the financing look like in terms of, did you have to bring in a down payment? When you turned that first single family home into a rental and bought the condo, how did you finance the condo? And was that house ever cash flow positive? Was it negative? You said you had to short sell it for a loss. Like, we hear all the amazing stories about real estate, the financial freedom and the wealth and all the success. But along the way, to really anyone's success story, are some failures and learning opportunities. So I kind of want to dig more into that, like that first house, that first condo, and just that period. And then also, where were you mentally with that being your first real estate experience? You're probably all excited reading these books, like, I'm going to get rich. And then all of a sudden you're short selling your home.
Yeah, that was for the house. It was a 5-1 ARM. I had to bring in a little bit down payment on that one that I had achieved via these other kind of entrepreneurial successes that I saw. I was selling electronics on eBay and PayPal was becoming a thing. eBay was becoming a big thing. So I had gained a little bit to put down a down payment. I don't think the down payment was a lot. I think it was less than $25K. I honestly don't remember. That was, I think, still a good deal to this day for that house. The condo I purchased, I think that was in 2007, mid 2007. So like right before things started going downhill.
Good timing on that one.
Yeah, it was perfect. And my kind of like mindset was like, oh, this is the beginning of my real estate journey. I've read about this. I'm going to go far with this. It's going to be great. And in the meantime, I moved into the condo and rented out the house. And at the time, it was cash flow positive, but marginal, maybe $100 a month kind of thing. It was basically just paying off the expenses for the house. And to explain how bad of a landlord I was at that time, like, I had no tenant screening process. I literally just, I think, posted on Facebook or maybe just told my friends and had a group of teens move in for my first tenant. There was like 6 of them.
No idea who they are.
No, I had no idea. got invited to their parties that they were throwing at my house.
You helped trash your own home, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like it just terrible process. And then went and had to get like a real job to start paying my mortgage for the condo. And so that's when I started working full time. I was, I think, 3 jobs at one point, just trying to pay the expenses of living. I had a young son at the time. So I was 22 and had a child. And I was just totally burnt out by this. I don't know how people get wealthy from real estate. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know how they're doing it. Like, they talk about all this like passive cash flow, and the house income, the $100 a month, was passive primarily because I was just ignoring. Like, I didn't do any maintenance. I didn't check on it. I didn't go there.
Just neglect.
Yeah, complete neglect.
It's interesting because I was buying properties in Oregon at that time too, 05, 06, 07. And the math actually worked a lot like that with properties in the Northwest, where a lot of people would say, and it did, the math worked in that like it was less expensive to buy a home than it was to rent a home. But most homes penciled with a couple $100s of cash flow. So you were one CapEx expense away from really not cash flowing, but where prices and interest rates were during that time, yeah, usually you could buy almost any home and almost anybody was approved for a loan, and it would technically rent out most properties for more than what your mortgage is. Now, once those arms adjusted and you had one CapEx expense, that changed things for someone that didn't have a lot of money in the bank or any kind of cash reserve. So
I had a really interesting scenario when the arm was coming due. I had also taken a break to be with my son, a break from work. So I was working 3 jobs, saving up money. I actually borrowed some money and enrolled myself in school. So I was like technically unemployed, also stay-at-home parent, also going to school. And Washington Mutual was my bank for that house loan. And they called me repeatedly for months. And they were like, hey, we need to refinance your home. Your arm's coming due. Like, we don't know what to do about this. You're unemployed. You're a high risk person. At this point, I was not behind on my mortgage at all. I was doing fine. But I kept being like, I don't know why they're reaching out to me. And then I read the news and I was like, oh, they're going under. They're trying to like get their books right. And then the home affordability modification program came out. And they hounded me for this. And they were like, hey, this new program came out. We'd love to get you on board. We're going to refi your loan. And finally, I was like, okay, tell me what you're going to do. And they gave me this loan that's to this day blows my mind. They split my loan in half. So 50% of it is on a 0% interest balloon. The remaining 50% was at the time, 1% up to 3% 40-year AM. And it's still one loan.
holy shit, I'll refi all my properties right now. 0% on half and 1 to 3% on the other half, done.
Yeah. And so they refinanced me and I was like, and at the time, to tell you where my mindset was, I didn't really know what that meant. I was just kind of like, oh, cool. Like, my payment's cheaper? Dope. I love it. So that's actually the point in which I was like, great, I should never get rid of this. I just should keep renting it out because now it's going to cash flow even more. Like, maybe there is something to this real estate thing. Now at this point, I'm still software engineering, chasing that like corporate ladder, working my butt off. And early COVID is when it started all shifting for me. I had managed an absolutely awful tenant. And this is, again, a tenant I got from a friend of a friend. I didn't do any screening processes. I don't even know who he was. I sort of heard his name before. Let him move in. During COVID, it went to absolute crap. Trashed the place, didn't pay. There was like a year and a half of him not paying. And so I was like going through the struggles, trying to figure out how to save and keep this house. Fortunately, I had a better paying job, so I wasn't like hitting the bottom. But it really reinforced the need to focus on better management practices. Up until this point, I hadn't been managing this property like a business at all. I'd just been sitting there and I'd been collecting a paycheck. Hadn't been doing any tenant screening processes. So that made me recognize, okay, I've got some holes here that I should learn about. And this is a point where I think I read or got introduced to Bigger Pockets, and started reading up on things and started like learning, oh, well, what does it mean to have a tenant screening process? And then the real catalyst came for me. in June of 21, the software company that I was working for shut down and I lost my job. They did give me a pretty big severance, which was great. And so I was like, great, I'm going to take the summer off and I'm just going to take some time off. I'm going to relax. I'm going to figure out what's going on with my life and how to kind of readjust. And this is right when I started learning about how to be a better landlord. So I went off and I started making trips up to my property. The tenant finally had moved out. And so I started rehabbing that property. And in that process, I discovered a neighbor house, which was pretty close by. And at this point, this house is in Seattle. I'm living in Portland. So I'm making back and forth trips constantly. I discover a neighbor house that has the key identifiers of all these kind of off-market properties that I've been reading about. Like, oh, the fence is falling apart. They've got a tarp over this side of the house. This would be really cool. Maybe I can make an off-market purchase. Like I had just heard this term. So I was like, oh, cool, let me experience it. Like implement this thing I've just learned. And so I started talking to the neighbor and then just being like, hey, could I buy your house? Could I buy your house? She eventually agreed. So I started with, it was a direct neighbor of my rental property. And my first thought was like, oh, this is going to be great. If I could buy his house, then I could have two rentals side by side. So now every time I have to drive up here and manage it myself, I can just like deal with both of them at the same time. And the fence in between both of our houses, this is how bad both properties were, had completely fallen over in one section, at a different type of fence for another section that was already starting to fall over. And so once my tenant had moved out, I started rehabbing my property and I was going to re-rent it. And I was like, oh yeah, it needs to be like nice. And I was like, if I fix the fence, maybe the neighbor will help pitch in. So I asked him, was like, hey, would you pitch in? He's like, absolutely not. I was just like, what a dick.
Not a chance.
Yeah, and he immediately shut me down. And then I decided like, okay, I'm going to pay for the fence and I'm just going to move forward. And then I asked him, I was like, oh, why would you not contribute anything towards our shared fencing? And like 80% of this fence is only on your property, but it looks terrible. And he said, well, at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be moving out of Seattle and I want to sell my house and I don't want to put any money into it. So this is where I was like, bro, whoa.
Perfect off-market opportunity.
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, great, let me see if I could buy this house. He was like, I'm not ready. This is going to be at least 6-9 months down the line. And this is early June that I started this conversation. And then by September, I think I had called him almost every 2 to 3 weeks trying to buy his house and seeing like, hey, what can we do? What sort of price? What makes sense? He finally gave me a price that made sense, that he was ready for. And I immediately started looking into like, oh, how could I make this a rental? And I very quickly realized there's no possible way at the price that he was willing to sell it for that I could buy it and make it a rental and cash flow at all. I was like, this makes no sense. I don't know why people are doing off-market purchases, acquisitions, if they can't even make rentals out of them. And this is also the summer where I started surrounding myself with more real estate-minded individuals. I had moved to Portland, so I got involved with Investor Lab. I had met some wholesalers, met some contractors. And I think at some point someone was like, why don't you see if you can run the numbers as a flip or a burr? I was like, what is this amazing concept? Like, let me read up on these. And I started practicing my underwriting with this property. And I was like, wait a minute, this pencils perfectly as a flip. There's margins here. It makes sense. I know this is a good deal. And every article I've been reading up to this point says, if you find the deal and there's money to be made, you can find the money after the fact. And I ignorantly and blindly followed these pieces of advice. I was like, great, let me download a PSA, purchase and sale agreement, and sign this contract with this guy. This is going to be great. So I download a PSA. I make a contract with this person, and right after we sign, I'm sitting there in kind of an oh shit moment of, oh my, I am unemployed. I do not have a lot in savings, and I just committed to buying a $600,000 house. Like, what am I doing?
Did you believe at the time, though? Did you believe that advice that you were told that if it's a good deal, I can find the money?
No, but I wanted to.
You didn't believe it, but you wanted to believe it. So you signed the contract in hopes that the money would find you, or that you were networked well enough to ask for the money and it would come easily.
Exactly. And I had never borrowed money at this point. So that was terrifying. So just asking for money was a terrifying concept.
What were the numbers on this? So you're going to buy it for 600,000. You go into contract at 600. It sounds like. How much do you need to put into it? And then what was your sort of like forecasted ARV? What were you going to make on it?
Yeah. So my initial numbers were how to wholesale it out. I think that was the easiest thing for me to conceptually grasp. My purchase price on it was actually 620, and the flip, like the rehab amount that was needed was, in my experience, which was zero, about 150K. So I was like, yeah, put in 150K, you can fix it, no problem. And I'd run those construction numbers by someone who had a better idea than me. And they were like, maybe. I haven't seen the property. I've only seen pictures. Who knows? And the ARV I kept running into was like, yeah, I think this is going to sell if it was fixed for at least 820 to 850. Like, I think there's some money in that. And that was, September of 2021. So I then reached out to literally everybody I possibly knew who was either involved in real estate or has significant chunks of money. And I had reached out to a friend who I had been really close with in high school, who I hadn't talked to in a number of years, but I knew had gone into the flipping world. I was like, hey, Paul, what's going on? So let's chat about this and see what's going on. And he suggested, why don't we partner on it and you do all the work? You do all the flip stuff. I'll connect you with some contractors, but we split it 50-50, but you have to do everything. And so that was the moment I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I'm currently not working, so it's going to be my only focus. So I was up at that property every 2 to 3 days, working with contractors, like putting one sub in front of the next, just constantly moving forward. And ended up spending about 200K on it. And that was a terrifying moment just because I didn't know if this was like, oh, we're going so far over budget. This isn't the right move. We kept finding problems in the house. The decks were rotting. Foundation was moving a little bit. And so it went way over budget, but we completed it at the end of January of 22 and sold it for 1.1. And it was just like, whoa.
So you were into this around $800,000 or maybe a little bit over, and you sold it for 1.1. So you had the tailwinds of the market obviously were in your favor. What year again? You said
2022.
Okay, 22. So you had some tailwinds. So that moment, what did that do for your mindset? I know this is not long-term real estate. This is a flip, but it's still a massive amount of equity in a shorter period of time. Did you go back to that 18-year-old you going, wait, this is possible again? I mean, what happened?
I had started that summer after reading more Bigger Pockets, after connecting with more people who are already actively doing it, that kind of mentality and mindset of like, oh, this is possible. Like people can make money. People can do this as a living. Started that flame like reignited. And then once I sold that house, it was kind of like, yes, I've just made more money in the last 3 or 4 months than I did in maybe a year of working. So I see that there is money to be made in this. It's not the kind of money I was wanting originally when I was 18 with this passive income, but I recognized like, oh, I actually really enjoyed doing that. Like I was doing things every day. My ADHD was going crazy. So I was like, which thing do I want to tackle today?
Yeah, I'm curious about that because your 18-year-old self, you actually understood the concept of buy and hold cash flow real estate or quote unquote passive income, and you wanted that. But then you flipped this house and you made some money. And did you, at the time, do you remember, like you were like, I don't need or I want the passive income. I can make these large chunks of money flipping, or you mentioned wholesaling. Like, what was your thought process at that time? Were you like, I'm going to put the passive stuff away? Or maybe you thought that cash flow positive real estate just wasn't a thing and that you were better off just flipping. And I kind of a leading question because I know where you're at today and I know what you're after today, and we'll get into that too. But once you flip that home, what was 2022 Jonah's thought process and I guess idea going forward look like?
It was actually kind of the opposite. For me, it was a validating moment that the things I was reading about and seeing other people do in the world were actual things that could happen. Granted, I had flipped a property, which is not what I had originally focused on with my passive income, but I recognized that I was like, wait a minute, these are truths here. It's just finding your niche. And that reignited okay, this can become a career and I can create passive income from it. So then it was, how do I do that? What do I have to learn? What do I have to focus on? And that actually was the first year and the first time I was like, great, I'm going to invest in myself. And I attended BP Con in October. And I think that's actually where we three met.
I think we were outside on the patio getting a drink. I think we ran into each other, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that was the first major networking event for me. And that had really shifted my mindset. Being around people that thought the same and kind of had the same sort of ideas around what real estate could do for them. Up until that point, I had never had that. I had always been told, like, you're crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, this doesn't make sense. And I had never proven it before that. So it was always kind of like, well, I think it's true, but I haven't done it. So who knows?
Jonah, let's talk about that moment. Not so much meeting us, but just being around the environment and not just the people on stage. You go to big events, there's great speakers, there's great presenters. But I always say, like, at an event or at a mastermind, at a meetup, even with these high-end, amazing, successful speakers, a lot of times the value is the hallway conversations, the dinner conversations, the after-hours conversations. What was that like to be in a room for the first time with other people, not just the guys on stage, the women on stage, but actually talking to normal fucking people that had scaled real estate and living a successful financially and fulfilling life? Was that like, yes, this is what I want. Yes, it's possible. Like being there and then walking away from there, the education piece, did it fuel you?
All of the above. It was one of those moments where you finally feel, and for me, this was a really big moment because it was the first time in my life that I was kind of like, wait a minute, these are all people who think like me. It's finally my tribe, my people. Like, this is incredible to have someone who took their free time to read the 4-hour work week because it was interesting and fun to them. And this is the first time I've been around people like that. And so to see that there was more people out there who had these kind of same ideas and then also had proven them. Like, I was speaking to people who they had proven the like Burr model. They had proven the buy and hold multifamily real estate. And they're like, yeah, I was talking to Jay Scott and it was just like, this guy is mind blowing. I didn't realize that this was even possible. My thoughts were still like, oh, I'm going to make a passive income to make it so that I don't have to worry about my grocery bill. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute. There's a whole different scale that you can bring this to. You're still thinking way too small. And I think that was the time where I started recognizing, how far could I take this? Like, what is that crazy lofty goal? What does that even mean for my life? Like, up until this point, I was still considering, oh, I can go get a software engineering job. I'm still unemployed. I still didn't have technically any income. So I was like, I need to figure something out real quick.
And you took 10 years off essentially from buying property. So it's not like you bought those properties in 06 and 07 and then just kept scaling. Like, you actually took 10 years off and in some ways started in 2021. That's not that long ago.
Yeah, they effectively reset. And that's when I started recognizing that there's these things that you have to do. It's this passive income spot was not just like, oh, you buy a house and you forget it and it's passive income for the rest of your life. There's systems, there's tools, there's processes. Like, you need to treat this like a real business. And I don't know why that had never clicked for me before, but that event and meeting and talking with all the people at it were kind of like, oh, yeah, that's stupid. Why didn't I think of this before?
Jonah, if you had to break it up like in percentages, and it's not going to be perfect, being at that event, talking to people, how much of what you, I guess, learned or the energy you were around, how much of that was like tactical advice of like, this is how you do this, or someone sharing what they've done? And how much of it was just the energy and being around people that have done what it is that you want to do? Like, you had to break that up.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because it was my first big event. And if you've ever been to BPCon, you know there's a ton of different tracks. There's a ton of people. There's people who don't even go to the talks. They just sit outside and chat. There's a lot you can get from it. And so I didn't know where to go. I was just kind of like, there's people all over the place. This is going to be amazing. So I picked a few talks that I thought would be really interesting for me. And they were like how to buy off-market properties and then how to manage rentals. And I went to those two tracks and then was just communicating with people outside of that. And I think it's probably about 25% tactical advice of like, hey, this is what you should do. Or that percentage might increase a little bit if it was kind of like, oh, you should go look at this idea. And that led me down a path of learning something more about something. But about 75% was like the energy, the people, the proving it that they've done that really kind of like validated me.
I'll piggyback on that. I think that the tactical, anybody can learn the tactics. Anybody can learn how to find deals, how to negotiate deals, how to underwrite deals. But like most people just don't believe, and it's cliche, but if you don't believe, then there's just the door shut. You'll never walk through it. I always feel like at those events or meeting the right people, it's been the most impactful when I realized two things. Somebody's playing this game at a really high level. And then the second thing is, oh my God, they're just like me. They're just like another human like me, like an average guy or gal. And then I'm like, if they can do it, like I can do it. And then come the tactics, because then I'm like, I'm going to figure this out or whatever.
Well, really, it was meeting Mitch. I was like, but this guy can do it.
If Mitch can do it, anyone can do it. No,
I take that to heart. I'm very average. But Gabe, I'm curious, what was your expectation for that answer? Were you kind of along those lines?
Yeah, I was curious because I talked to a lot of people about that, right? Like, I think it's important to be in the right room and with around the right people. And the first time I ever went to a paid event was in 2012. And it was called the Summit at Sea. It was the Real Estate Guys Summit at Sea. And it was actually the first year Robert Kiyosaki went, and I wanted to meet Kiyosaki, and Kim was there and all their advisors were there, right? And it was amazing conversation and people up on stage speaking. But what really blew my mind is exactly what you guys are saying. I was in a room and I think I'm hot shit because in my little circle, I have 17 units. I'm financially free, even though it was like not that much money. And then I'm meeting these average folks that have hundreds of units, thousands of units. And it wasn't a jealousy thing. It was like, yeah, we all know the people on stage. But now I'm meeting these average people that I've never, I don't want to call them average because they're amazingly successful, but people I've never heard of that have scaled real estate portfolios to hundreds and sometimes thousands of units to reach financial freedom and ultimately to live the life that they want through real estate. So that was a big aha for me. And that's really kind of why I asked you, Jonah, because some of it was tactical. Like I always say, you're one relationship away from taking your life to the next level, whatever that next level might be. One idea, one conversation. And sometimes there's a tactical piece to that, or you hear something and you go research it or implement it. But oftentimes it's being around the people that have already done what you're doing. And you're like, all they're doing, they're not making something up. They're doing what people have done for hundreds of years by investing in real estate. And it's just, for me, that was a huge aha. And what was a big catalyst to leveling up was just getting around the right people in the right room that are 1, 2, 3, 10 steps ahead of where I was at the time.
And I think to piggyback on what you're saying, Gabe, to be in that room, to see people who are like, oh yeah, you can go to the next level. For me, it was my next level was way down here. They were like, oh, you should be up here. You should try look at this. And it was ideas and thoughts that I had just never even formulated. I was just like, oh, that seems absurd. But now I'm talking to this seemingly average, amazing human who's already doing that. I'm like, oh, well, maybe my scale is too low.
You see it all the time too. People say, look, I've read all the books. I've gotten the courses. They know the language of real estate. They know the definitions. They know all the things, which is important to know over time. But they're like, I'm stuck. And I think there's this intangible thing we can't measure. There's no way to measure it. There's no way to sort of quantify it. But getting around other people is the sauce. It is the cocktail. It's more important than the tactics.
Well, you can also you can compress time frames. Like if you're in a room with people that have been doing something 10, 20, 30 years, they can tell you the good, bad, and the ugly. And yes, people are going to make mistakes, but you can also learn from other people's mistakes and successes, like what to do, what not to do. Maybe they don't have the life that you want, or maybe they scaled in a way that doesn't appeal to you. But you can really compress a lot of time frames by being around people that are already doing the thing that you want to do instead of having to bang your head against the wall 100 times trying to figure it out on your own.
One conversation that really stood out for me at BPCon was I was sitting with Jimmy, who's a flipper out of Seattle. And I very quickly recognized that I absolutely do not want to do what he does. I want nothing to do with his life. He's wildly successful. He's all over TV. He's incredibly wealthy, great family, but he also works a lot. And that's his life of flipping. And he loves it. And me, if you're listening, this is amazing for you. I love it for you. But I very quickly recognized, like, I don't want anything to do with that. And so it solidified my path of what I wanted to.
I think that's amazing. And I think there's an alignment piece to that, kind of getting off of real estate a little bit. I know Jimmy as well. It might have been that event or another event. He took us across the water in his yacht, and amazing dude, amazing time. I was talking about time freedom. He was like, time freedom? What are you talking about? I do think that it's a very large percentage of people that I have conversations with that want to, or who are invested in real estate, they actually are excited about financial freedom for the reason of time freedom. Jimmy's not one of those guys. Like, I truly think it's like the Gary V's of the world, the grind. Like, I truly think a guy like Jimmy, just because I've had this conversation, like, their happy place is working 100 hours a week. I think that's rare. He's living, I think, his best life doing what truly fulfills him. For the other, 90 something % of people, I really think they don't want to be working 100 hours a week. And so I think, that alignment piece is actually important. Like, great guy, great business for what he wants. But it's a good question to always ask. If I take this on, or if I scale my business in this way, does it ultimately give me the life that I want? Because I do see people taking on things that align with real estate, but don't align with the life they want. And that can be very dangerous if you're not clear on what it is that you want in your life. So I actually think, as a young investor, for you to see that early on is actually pretty remarkable.
Yeah, that was huge for me.
Also, if you think about real estate, what's so neat is that, like, you can, if you back up and you design your life before you get into it, I think that's recommended, because otherwise, like Gabe's saying, you can get sucked in and now you're working 60 hours a week and you want to be free. If you can define your why and really understand your value system, then real estate has all of the answers. You could work 60 hours a week or 80 hours. You could work almost none at all. You could work, I'm almost on a seasonal where I'm like, a couple months, I'm going to go find awesome deals and close some stuff. And then I'm going to take the summer off. So you can design it however you want. And I think that's what's so interesting versus a W-2. Most W-2s, maybe unlike, except for software engineering, maybe there's not a lot of flexibility, right? And so it's more like, okay, clock in, clock out, versus real estate. Design it first and then approach the market and make it fit into your life, into your why. So anyway, I think it's pretty cool. There's any possibility.
And I think that was actually one of my biggest struggles. And that leads me into the next point. Right after BPCon, I was like, great, I need to scale and I need to make massive moves. Burn one of my first properties, bought a single family home, converted it into a duplex, rented out, full burr. I was like, this is amazing. Model is proven. And that's when I started recognizing that I needed to narrow in. And this is, I think, when I first started having some conversations with Gabe of like, well, what is your asset class? Like, what are you doing? What path are you taking in real estate? And so this is early, I think, 2023. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to focus on wholesaling. And then when I get a good deal for myself, I'm going to flip it. But then if I get a good deal, I'm going to keep it. And then, should I do it in the Pacific Northwest or should I look elsewhere? And I was like, geographic scoping, marketing, passive versus active income, mobile home communities. And it's like all of these things started just bombarding me after this event. I was just overwhelmed with all the different paths and options. And so that's when I started getting more clear on, okay, well, what is the vision? And that's, for me at the time, was focus on passive income from long-term rentals while balancing this kind of immediate active income. Like, you need something to live to cover just living costs.
Jonah, what was the vision for your life then? I mean, it sounds like you got clear on really what you wanted or how you wanted to use real estate and what wasn't attractive to you, but what was your vision for your life and what did you actually want real estate to do for you?
At that point, I started narrowing it and recognized, like, I want to make it so my partner and I can choose to focus and work on things that we want to, not be beholden. So my partner works a W-2 job. She's a software engineer as well, but she's amazingly talented crafter. Sews, she builds things. It's hard to focus on the hobbies that you really enjoy and the family time that you want and all the things that you enjoy in life if you're also having to work a full-time job. And so I was like, if we can get rid of these full-time jobs and free up our time, we can fill up our time in our life with things that we want to focus on, things we want to do. And so that immediately was kind of like, that's my goal. That's my North Star. Anything I do in my business, if it helps me get closer to the right direction. And this was also kind of a weird thing because everybody kept telling me like, well, pick an asset class. And this is every person in my sphere at this point was like, pick an asset class and focus only on that. And at the time, that sort of derailed some of the progress I was making in single family homes, burring, flipping, whatnot. I had started focusing solely on mobile home communities because I had seen others around me very successful with that.
Everybody was telling you this except for me. So you were listening to Travis and Mitch.
I don't know. I just say I like them. I love mobile home parks.
They were saying pick an asset class, mobile home parks. Pick an asset class, mobile home parks.
That's Travis. We're gonna blame Travis. He's not on the call. So
and then you picked an asset class and it was mobile home parks.
Exactly. No, actually, so my anti-authoritarian system was like, don't tell me what to do. I can look at whatever I want. Like other people have done it with other things. So the first thing I did was I looked at laundromats. And I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. I could figure out how to utilize some of my systems and computer operational skills, manage this better, maybe remote locks, maybe like remote systems in place. And while I was touring a laundromat, some guy had a laundromat that he was selling that he had like an open house showing for. Effectively, there was like a dozen of us who were all interested in this. This is in Portland. And I overhear one of the gentlemen saying like, oh, this is really interesting. I'm really excited, but I have to sell my vending business to do this. And at this point in the showing, I recognized like this guy was not willing to negotiate on the laundromat. The pricing didn't make sense at all. I was hoping I could go in there and lowball him. So I turned over and I was kind of like, tell me about your vending business. Like, tell me more about it. And this guy starts telling me about his vending route that he has. He's got like 6 or so locations, 8 or something machines, makes some money from it, spends about 20 hours a week doing it, but makes some money. And I was kind of like, wait a minute, if I could optimize this down to like just 50% of that, like in my mind, 50% optimization of his hours put in was huge. I was like, if I could take this from 20 hours a week to 10 hours a week, I could then hire out those 10 hours a week and then still be making some cash flow. So this helps me get towards my cash flow positive marker. And I ended up taking a HELOC from that original house that I had to buy the vending route. I was like, great, this is going to do amazing. It's going to be the perfect setup. It's going to help me add to my passive cash flow. I take the next few months, and I'm still focusing on real estate this time, but I take the next few months and I optimize this vending route a little over optimized in a good way, in that I now spend maybe 3 to 4 hours a week on this, but 3 to 4 hours a week means it's almost impossible to hire out. This is not a thing I could hire out now. And I was like, wait a minute. I sort of screwed myself with this because now I'm beholden to doing these things every week, and it's distracting me from my bigger focus. And this is not a lot of money, by the way. This is positive cash flow of $1,000 a month or something. And then I was like, wait a minute. At this point in time in my life, when I was 18, 19, if I had someone who could show me how other businesses work besides this kind of W-2 life, that would have been life-changing for me. And so I brought my son in. I was like, hey, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know. Let's go. And so now both of my sons completely run the vending business. I am kind of check on it once a month or so and see how it's doing, and they profit from it and they're both making money. But more importantly, they're learning an alternative lifestyle and income.
So cool. So how much did you buy the vending business for?
$35,000.
And you make about $1,000 a month on it, and then you pay.
I was using the numbers that I had learned on how to underwrite a mobile home community of like, well, what is cap rate? What is your return on investment? Like, I had used those skills that I was learning to underwrite mobile home communities And I just used those same skills to underwrite this vending business. So I was like, wait a minute, my cash on cash is enormous. Like why? And it's not a lot, but it's enormous for this because in the vending world, like it's not leveraged, which is the big difference. So it wasn't this massive life-changing amount, but the numbers made a lot of sense. So I was like, great, they're going to get me closer to that.
Jonah, let's shift back to real estate for a little bit. I don't want to get to the end of the podcast and not talk about the MARINA that you purchased, because I know we talk about asset classes. Some people I don't even think understand what a MARINA is, how you would buy a MARINA, how you operate a MARINA, how you rent one out, like who owns the slips, all these things. But I know it's something that you worked on for a long time. You shared a lot about it with me. I think it's a very interesting story, a very, very interesting asset class. And like all real estate, there's a lot of opportunities. So I don't want to get to the top of the hour and not hear about them.
So fast forward, I continued focusing on real estate. I had offloaded the vending business to my sons. The mobile home community asset class was not, it didn't sit right. It didn't feel right to me right off the bat. I'm still very interested. I'm still probably going to pursue it, but I wanted to see what else is out there. And I think it was early May of 2023 that I talked with someone about a MARINA. It was kind of like, wait a minute, that is an asset class just the same as a mobile home community. And it's effectively the best world from the mobile home world because it's all tenant owned slips. Like a slip is just a pad. I don't own the boat. They're responsible for the boat. So I was like, wait a minute, let me look into this more. And so I started underwriting the same way I was a mobile home community for a MARINA. And I started doing this and started practicing. And I realized in that process, there's so many MARINAs out there that are just mom and pop owned, just like mobile home communities were decades ago. And so I started looking into it more, and I actually found one that was for sale. They had tried to sell it, didn't get a lot of traction, and then decided to be serious about selling it. And so that's when I got connected. And when you first get introduced to an asset class, there's so many things about this that I had no idea about. So the DSL lease, this is a lease from the federal government or the state that you have to lease because you work on the land or the water that like the federal government owns. And so you have to like lease it back so that you can do this. One thing that was unique about this MARINA that I started looking at is it was built before it was a federal waterway. So I own the land under the water, which is extremely unique in the MARINA world. I was like, well, I wonder truly what that means. I know there's some value in it. And I was on a boat a couple of summers ago and talked with someone who ended up being the real estate attorney for the military. And he was like, that is unheard of. That's so much value in that. I was like, whoa, okay, let me look into this more. And that's when I started doing the comparisons of, a tenant unhomed, they just rent the lot. A boat slip, they just rent the slip. Comparable. So now it's all 100% tenant-owned slips. With this MARINA specifically, it also has some floating homes. There's a dozen or so floating homes which follow that same process. I don't own the home. I just rent the slip out. I was like, oh, great. So it's the same as if it was another just tenant-owned home. The boat slips, same concept. There's a few dozen floating homes and like 70 or so boat slips on this MARINA. And I started recognizing that it matched all of the criteria that I wanted for mobile home communities. It had the value add aspect. The docks hadn't been repaired in quite some time. The lot rents were pretty low comparatively to what was around it. And so I started looking at it as if this was just going to be my asset class. And at this point, I wasn't very confident that I was going to be able to close on this, but I was full steam ahead. And fast forward, that took about 6 to 9 months of constant negotiating back and forth, learning new things. It now got to a point where I was like, wait a minute, this makes a lot of sense. This is what everybody's been telling me to do. And we skipped through 2023 to 2025, I'd say is like the maximum kind of momentum build. There's a bunch of multifamily houses purchased, but also that's when majority of the underwriting, due diligence, and process for figuring out how to close this marina happened, and ended up closing that earlier this year. And now it's been, let's implement the plans that we created for this. And it's amazing.
Jonah, talk us through how you bought this property. What was the price? What was the structure of the financing? Did you bring in partners? Kind of talk us through logistically how you went from underwriting, analyzing, making the offer, and then executing on the purchase. And then I know it's a newer purchase for you, but operations as well.
So originally they were asking 2-1, and they were open to seller financing of about like 40 to 50% of it. And at that price, it didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, but I was interested and curious with marinas, so I was going down the process. Fast forward, we negotiated with the seller, who I'm still good friends with at this point now. We've spoken damn near every week for a year and a half at this point. The seller financed 80% of it, and we negotiated down to 1.7. And at that rate, it was like, okay, how can I do this myself? And I realized very quickly I didn't have the capital to do that, but I also didn't want to go at this alone, knowing that this was my first venture into this world. So I decided to open it up to partners and brought on some fantastic partners. I've got 2 partners in this. One who has a lot of extensive experience building homes and also building floating homes and building marinas. Another partner who owns a marina and runs multiple businesses off of a marina out of state. And so with the 3 of us combined, it was just like, oh, this makes perfect sense to do this as a group and as a partnership. And let's see. So what do you say? So then operational. So yeah, then we closed it at 1.7, had to bring in 20%.
So you put 20% down and the rest of it was all seller financed.
Exactly.
What were the terms of seller financing note?
They are just under 7%.
How long are they carrying for?
7 years. And the 20% down payment wasn't too big of a problem, but it was the CapEx and immediate repairs that we knew we had to do. So it was trying to figure out, like, how can we raise enough capital between the 3 of us to do this? And I had a moment where I was like, I don't know how I'm going to possibly do this. And then Mitch's voice was in the back of my head. Mitch and I, years prior, had done an exercise of like, well, what do you currently own? What are the cash on cash? Like, where are you getting the best value from your current assets? And in that exercise, I had to list out all of my real estate purchases, what money was in it, what I owed on it, what the like maximum value I could get out of it. And I started looking down that list and I saw one. I was like, wait a minute, I could 1031 exchange this. The tenants in the house have been asking me for years to buy it. It does cash flow. So I always thought like, oh, well, cash flow. So I don't want it. I don't want to get rid of it. But the tenants had been asking me for years. And so I said, hey, are you still interested in buying this property? I was able to 1031 exchange that and put that towards the down payment and CapEx repairs for the rehab of the marina. So that was my cash injection for it.
So would you say that exercise with Mitch potentially created over $1 million of like net worth?
I don't want to raise his ego too much.
Yeah, you need to. Just give me all the compliments. No, I'm joking.
Seriously though, yeah, I did. Going through that exercise with Travis and Mitch, 2.5 years ago, that really changed the way that I looked at, well, yes, it makes me cash now, but does it make me the most cash I could be making with that amount? And so rolling that over into the marina was, crucial. That's part of what helped me close the deal. And that's what gave us enough capital to have the runway and the reserves to rebuild and replace all the things on the marina that it needs to get it performing to what our pro forma said it was going to.
That's amazing. And then how is this property being managed? Are you managing this? Have you one of your partners managing this? What's that look like? What's the day-to-day look like on owning the marina?
Yeah, so we're taking a divide and conquer approach. One of my partners is doing all the sort of marketing operational stances. So making sure that slips are filled, making sure that we're marketing it out there. he takes all that responsibility. One of my partners is taking on all of the day-to-day maintenance, and I'm taking on the kind of operation of the whole operational aspect of it. We did partner with the on-site manager that's already there. And so he's staying on board. He actually lives on site. Shout out Terry, thank you. And so we're kind of phasing in the systems that we want. So we didn't have a day one cutoff of like switch, change everything. It's a, hey, let's take over the website. Let's take over the phone system. Let's take over the marketing. Let's take over the day-to-day leases. Let's take over the how we report maintenance problems. And some combination of the partners, me and one of the partners who's taking on maintenance, we're the ones working together to do the whole rebuild. Me and the partner who's taking on marketing, we're taking over and working together on how do we optimize the operations for both of us.
It's interesting. And I'm just like listening and observing you, Jonah, not only on this show, but also just like over time. I'm so impressed. One of the big takeaways, I think you listen and you implement, and that's rare. And you talked about multiple instances, even just today, whether you're on a boat talking to a marina professional and you're like listening, you're open, right? You're not closed to new ideas or new thoughts. Or in a laundromat, you hear some guy talking about a vending machine. Like you're kind of a yes guy, kind of a listening and a yes guy. And hey, let's explore and make this an adventure. And I think that's really cool. The other thing too is early on, we encourage you to pick an asset class and learn that asset class. I think that I don't know that you need to stick with that. I think one of the big benefits, though, is you learn the fundamentals of real estate via mobile home parks. So whether you buy a mobile home park ever doesn't really matter, but you learn the fundamentals via that asset class. You've applied that to vending. You've applied it to marinas now. And I think people sometimes miss that, where they're like, well, I really understand apartments now, but I want to switch into this other asset. You're like, well, the fundamentals, if you're a fundamental investor, I don't know if that's the right way to say that, but like cash on cash is the same. DSCR is the same. Like all the things are the same, and you can apply that in different asset classes. So watching you do that's really awesome. And who knows what you're going to get into next. And so anyway, I just had a couple observations there I wanted to bring up.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
I agree with Mitch, and Mitch very well articulated. I think, Jonah, you come across as an opportunist. Like you're clear on what you want your life to look like today, but you do listen and you're open to opportunities like the vending machine opportunity that happened to be in a laundromat, like the marina opportunity, right? Like you say no to the things that don't align, but you say yes to the things that do. And I think you're a great example of doing just that and being an active listener, sorting out what might be an actual opportunity for your life.
And I think that the biggest piece of all of those, and thank you so much for the compliments. It's really reassuring to feel that and hear that from other people around me, especially people I look up to who've been so successful. And I feel like I can confidently say you've been valuable mentors to me. I had to overcome a lot of discouragement and setbacks. And I think a lot of that was by actually surrounding myself with supportive, like-minded individuals and kind of like fully immersing myself in the learning, but also fully immersing myself into the world of possibilities. The crucial piece for me there was mindset was everything. And I think the moment it clicked for me, Mitch had called me out of the blue. And I was on a vacation. I was out in Chelan doing some wake surfing adventures with other real estate minded folks. And Mitch was like, what shifted? I was like, everything. Everything shifted.
I was literally on the highway with my wife and the kiddos in the back. And I said, I'm just like thinking, daydreaming, driving. And I go, Hannah's my wife. I go, Hannah, I got to make a call. She's like, everything good? I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. I call up Jonah. I go, what shifted? He's like, what do you mean what shifted? I'm like, you need to tell me what's going on. And because Jonah just blossomed. I mean, it was truly like, and I think it's like, again, going back to that conversation, like, I think you had the tactics, you had the language, you had all the things, you'd already done all the work, read the books. But when your mindset shifted, you got some confidence, you realize that it's true and that you can do it. I've just seen you blow up in a way that's like so impressive and so exciting. And I was daydreaming. I'm like, I got to know what's going on with Jonah. So anyway, random call, man. But I just like, yeah. So
it was awesome though. It really validated that like success does come from clarity of purpose. A balance between passive and active income was something that I struggled with quite a bit. But recognizing like, oh, well, having some balance and focus between both of these things and also leveraging systems and processes. That is where I feel like I excel the most. Like I can figure out what is this process currently and how can I just automate it all? Leveraging those kind of things and really like delegating was one of those things that I didn't understand conceptually how to do. And I'm still learning how to do it. But there's lots of things that we went to a mastermind in Arizona where someone was like, I don't care where you're at, hire a bookkeeper. I don't care where you're at, hire a VA. And I was like, yeah, duh.
Jonah, let's say, and this is a hypothetical. We hope this is a hypothetical for any of our guests. We hope this doesn't actually happen, but hypothetically, you lose it all tomorrow. And that includes not just your real estate, not just your money, not just your net worth, but your network. You lost it all. We used to say you're sitting on a buddy's couch, but I'm going to say you're sitting on the curb alone and you've lost it. You've lost it all, everything but your family. What do you do first? What's your first move to build back to where you are today or past where you are today?
So if I have all the knowledge and I'm sitting on a curb by myself, what am I going to do to rebuild? I'm going to start with focusing on what I want. What does the end goal look like? And then I'm going to start working backwards. How can I get incrementally closer to that? I've learned that swinger for the fences and making these home run deals, like that does happen, that can happen, and I fully support when it does. But making the consistent progress towards the North Star goal that you have is much easier for me to digest and comprehend. And so whatever that North Star is, I'm going to start with, let's write it down. Let's figure it out. Let's get clarity of what the purpose is here. And whether that be small, like tactical things of wholesale here and flip a house here, get some capital, do this, like who cares?
That's pretty awesome. I love that answer. And I think too, and this is cliche, but like, I do think it's not arriving at the North Star necessarily. It's the entire journey to get there. And I always thought that was such a cliche thing, but I've talked to so many people that are at the tail end of their career and they've achieved the thing that they want to achieve. And they're like, man, all the years that I was striving to get here, that was fun. I surrounded myself with awesome people and I had some awesome deals or I had some awesome adventures. And so set the North Star, take incremental steps. I love that answer, man.
Yeah. And that's my biggest focus right now. And today, like I'm focused on sustainable long-term growth, kind of sharing what I've learned with others along the way. I really enjoy that. I'm currently doing a flip with my son. He's 20 and he's buying his first house as well while we're flipping a house. So this is just like, it's all coming together for me.
Phenomenal. Jonah, it's been awesome having you on the show. It's awesome to have you part of the Elite Mastermind. I know that you also enjoy mentoring others, man. So this episode's going to impact a lot of people.
I sure hope so. Really enjoy, guys.